Welcome back to another week of Wellness Wednesday. I am Jessie Raspiller. This week, I really want to dive in and open up the conversation around meditation with you. And so, whether you're an experienced practitioner or somebody that's been curious and trying to figure out how to sit still for a couple of minutes each day, I want to just dive in and sort of begin to harness some ideas and different ways that you can integrate meditation very simply into your life, or to really begin to deepen that practice in an enriching way that maybe hasn't crossed your path in the past. For me, meditation has been instrumental in my sanity for the last 5 or so years, and it has evolved over that lifetime of practice. And I want to just take a step back to the beginning of why I feel like so many of us have a challenge with getting into a meditation practice. First and foremost, it's all about finding that space that really works for you to meditate. Oftentimes, our Western world has this belief system around meditation has to be perfect stillness and the mind has to stop, and only then are we meditating. Well, that might be true after some time, but I tend to find that it's sort of the opposite, at least when it comes to the practice of meditation, not the advancement and the mastery of meditation. To me, meditation is really much more about bringing yourself into a single pointed focus. And so, what does that really mean? And let's take something that maybe we're a little bit more familiar with. When we move through a yoga asana practice, we are oftentimes guided into postures and one breath, one movement in a way that really allows us to sort of come into this midline space that collects us from this distracted world that we live in and brings us right back into our center. And to me, that's why so many people end up falling in love with the practice of yoga, and yet they don't always understand the harnessed energy of what's going on behind the scenes and what the body is really feeling empowered through these movement and these poses that we perform in our yoga practice. So yoga is, in essence, it's both a meditation within itself if it's approached with this single-minded focus, but it is also the preparation for the meditation. If we look at the lineage of yoga, the asana or the movement practice is the preparation of the body, getting the kinks out, moving the pathways, allowing the breath to flow, the prana, the life force to come into the body, so that when we sit, there's a much more settled container for us to sit in. Because then the idea of a meditation practice is to bring focus. And so this idea of focus, again, is not so much, at least in my practices and the things that I've studied, about stopping the mind. It's much more about becoming the observer of the mind. And so the easiest way that I sort of describe this to my clients and my students is, think about the thoughts that we have in our head as sort of this ticker tape, this like ongoing, kind of like the stock market clock. It just keeps going and going and going for infinite amount of time, right? Unlike the stock market, there's not a stop at the end of the day. It just continues on. However, oftentimes our thoughts are these layers upon sub-layers of things, multiple things going on all at once. To me, meditation is looking to sort of streamline those thoughts, and it's inviting us to take a moment to actually notice what it is that we're thinking. Because oftentimes when we have that awareness around what we're thinking and we look at it, it's either that availability to just allow it to dissolve altogether, or it begins to open up this whole new possibility of us taking a look at this sort of introspection of ourselves. Why does this thought continue to come up? Where can I work with this thought? Once I get up off of this seated position, what are the things that I really need to look at? Because if this is sort of that hamster wheel that I'm perpetually on with this same thought pattern, how can I begin to shift that? And what needs to be done as an action item once meditation is done to be able to move through and with that thought and eventually create the dissolution of that thought as well? And so again, this is sort of where the idea that the ending of all thoughts is when we are actually meditating. Again, it's not about the ending at certain points in our practice, it's just really about the observations. And so for me, meditation looks like so many different things, right? It's seated, yes, and my seated practice is such an important part of my life. But hiking is a huge part of my meditation. Once a week I go out into nature and I listen and I connect my breath to the rhythm of my walking, and breathe in the depths of what nature has to offer me. And in those moments, my thoughts, they get really clear and really sharp. And sometimes they're a little bit ragged, and I have to, take these moments, this gift of this time that I've created for myself, and really actually start to peel back. Where are these coming from? Are these thoughts true to me? Is this something that I need to even continue on? Worry, doubt, fear, whatever the emotion is that I'm attaching to these thoughts that are coming up. And then I can either move through it or take the actionable sort of response to it later on. For some people, cooking is a beautiful meditation, because it's, again, you're creating and you're sort of bringing all these elements of creation into space and putting them into a container and, making that magic for yourself. Again, yoga can be a meditation if we are allowing ourselves to come into that sort of thought pattern and that focus. So many people talk about runner's high. To me, I've never experienced a runner's high personally, but I have to imagine that there is this opportunity where everything just sort of comes back to you, where all of the strings that are attached of these modern worlds that we live in, these devices that we're constantly connected to, we let it all go for 25 minutes, I don't know. We bring it back into ourselves, and all of a sudden we can start to see more clearly who it is that we are inside. Part of my love for surfing that you all have begun to see this, little micro community we're creating within our yoga community, is because I've always had this desire to be on a board and to experience the meditation that I imagine these surfers are having out there. And you know what? It is beautiful. It's either a conversation with friends or there's those moments where I just get to sit on the board and look at the horizon out there and just exhale. And so combining and bringing ourselves into a seat, again, is just one way to come into a meditation. And I would like to share a practice with you to sort of bring that single pointed focus sort of practice into mind, and noticing then where you can integrate this, whether you're walking down the street on your morning walk with your dog every day, you're taking sips of your coffee, and you're just allowing yourself to come back into this space. It's all those times that we get drawn out there that we lose a little piece of ourselves. And so meditation is really about coming back into this midline. And so one of the ways that I love to bring a single pointed focus into my meditations is through mudras. We're all familiar with this mudra. Yeah, we've seen it in all the Instagrammable posts and yoga pictures for years, and it's sort of like that picturesque, we are yogi if we've struck the mudra, right? But I want to start to bring in some of the technologies that we don't see all the time, and start to integrate these into your practices, and invite you guys to bring these in as well, because these meditation techniques have really shifted my world when I take those moments just to come back into myself. And so I'm going to invite you in a few moments to actually come to a seat. And so again, you can either pause this and come back to it, or you can grab your cushion and find a comfortable seat within yourself. And so just, taking the body for a moment, and just, giving these little thoughts to you is, within this midline that we have, and I keep making this motion because this idea is like we're bringing everything back into our center. We have this line of energy that runs down to us. We've heard about these chakras that run up, these energy swirls that we have in our body. We have these lines of energy physically that run through the back of our spine. And then it's all about that collection of bringing everything back into this midline. But in that sense, we also have this duality from left to right. Our left is the representation of our feminine side, our receiving side. It is also known as the lunar. Our right side, and again, this is regardless of gender, this is just the dualistic nature within mankind, or womankind, if you will. Our right hand is the masculine energies. It is how we give out into the world, and it's also that solar side. And so there's this idea of bringing balance to both of these sides when we come back into the middle. Oftentimes we find ourselves weighted, over into these masculine energies and this very, sort of patterned and repetitive worlds that we live in, and then this feminine side, which is very much our creative and our whimsicality, often can be missing, when we are in sort of our rigid routines. And so meditation with this single pointed focus also can begin to bring balance. And we'll talk more about this down the road. This is just sort of planting some seeds with you. But for now, we're going to start with that feminine side again, because this is often the side that receives a little bit less in our sort of Western worlds. And so bringing that feminine essence and creating that mudra, that sort of symbol of I'm okay. And then we're going to invite the masculine into the feminine. And so essentially we're creating a hook with the right thumb over the left, and then crossing those fingers across. And so if you were to look at the top of your hands, you've got a bit of an infinity sign going right here, right? And so today in our meditation, we're just going to take a few moments to sit in silence. And we're going to direct that single pointed focus into the center of this infinity sign, or whatever way your focus within this infinity sign really starts to erupt is a beautiful practice, right? Because I can be a teacher of so many things, but my students often teach me the things that my calmness and my single pointed focus hasn't drawn me into yet. And so the invitation to just sort of bring this, we're imagining that there's just a ball here that we're kind of holding on to, and we're just going to drop that into the lap, say, around our root and sort of sacral chakras. And then we're going to close the eyes down and just sort of let your body settle. So again, you're in your comfortable seat, whatever that looks like. And just allowing your awareness to come to the tailbone and just dropping the tailbone comfortably onto the earth. And then just the invitation to take a nice big inhalation. Exhale out the mouth, clearing breath, side out. And then we're going to take 3 Ujjayi breaths. And when we expel the breath, we'll be expelling the idea of the breath, but we'll be packing the energy from that breath, the Ujjayi breath, into the torso. So we're creating a nice big ball of energy into the midline of the body, just energizing our core. So taking a nice big inhalation in through the nose, making that slight constriction at the back of the throat. As you exhale, dissipate the air, but allow the energy to be retained, and just imagine that you're packing a cloud down into the pelvis. So you're packing that cloud of energy down into the pelvis region, emptying completely. And then inhaling once again, Ujjayi. Exhale, slight constriction. Exhale the breath, but remains with the energy. Packing that layer, that cloud of energy on top of the previous one. So maybe this stacks to the middle of the torso, exhaling completely. Inhaling Ujjayi once again. Filling the belly, the chest, the back body. And then exhaling again, packing the energy on top of the previous 2 layers. Exhaling completely. And then just bringing that awareness into the sign of infinity that you're holding in your pointer and thumbs. And just beginning to breathe in and out of the palms. Using that imagery to bring your focus to that abdomen, inhaling into the belly. Exhaling again, a clearing breath. And then inhaling into the belly. Exhaling out the belly. Continuing on with your natural breath in the abdomen, out the abdomen. Bringing all of your awareness, including the breath, just to the middle of your palms or into that infinity sign. And just taking a few moments to be the observer. Either thoughts are beginning to come up, or you're just beginning to trace the rhythm of your breath as you bring your awareness, your inner eye, your inner gaze into the palms, into that infinity sign. As your inner gaze finds this particular space in the body, just beginning to have an awareness, any temperature, any sensations, any feelings in the palms. Maybe it's again just always with each inhale and each exhale, reminding the mind to come back to the inner gaze. Taking just a few more rounds of breath like this. And again, you are that observer. So if the mind wanders away from the inner gaze, then we are just being the watchers of the mind. What are sort of the arguments that the mind has to present in this moment? What are the tasks that the mind is trying to draw you to? And can we sort of invite those thoughts to come into the container, that single pointed focus that we've created in the palms? And just taking another big inhalation through the nose. Opening the mouth, cleansing breath. We'll begin to open up the palms out in front of us, just allowing that energetic abundance, that moment of pause, that coming back to ourselves to be extended outwards. You know, so often we find these moments for ourselves and they're just such a gift, and you know, just sending the little thoughts and whispers off to others. That extension of our own abundance that we've created can sort of be a blanket for others out there as well. And so sending this abundance outwards, maybe in the form of a blessing or a prayer, or just a thought to a special individual. And then rubbing the palms together. We'll just take anything excess and begin to rub it onto the legs. And just taking a moment to check in with yourself. Just these few moments that we spent in silence and stillness. That invitation to come back within, into the midline, back into our truth, into the depth of our own spirit and what we have to offer to the world. And so feeling free to revisit this part of our video at any point, repeating this meditation. And as the weeks continue on with this Wellness Wednesday, we will continue to add on to this meditation and many others. There's so many additional mudras that we can continue to take and to continue to bring the energy, that sort of revitalized life force into ourselves, so that when we take these few moments once a day or a few times throughout the day, it really just energizes us in a way that we have so much more to give when we go back out there. And so, as we know, life is a beautiful journey, and I hope you all venture well.